Today on the podcast, I have author Susan Leon. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You've lived in Ottawa, Ontario most of your life.
A little bit southwest of Ottawa in a little place called Carleton Place for many, many years. And then we traveled quite a bit in an RV. So living in a sardine can is pretty interesting. And then recently we've been in Mexico for a year and a half. And now we're back in Ottawa. So it's kind of good to be home, but traveling was great too.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. I've spent most of my life in Ottawa, whereas you have lived here a big chunk, but you're also originally from Northern Ontario. As you said, you traveled in an RV and you've lived in Mexico. Ottawa is kind of known as being a bit of a sleepy, boring town. I'm curious, do your travels confirm that, or what's your take on Ottawa having seen a larger world out there?
Well, Ottawa is kind of laid back. I mean, they kind of roll up the street here in early hours. Mexico, like music is going on till the wee hours of the morning, and you just get used to it. But we have family here, and so that's kind of the draw. Once you get to my age, you kind of appreciate having family close by,
Well, I think
especially after we've been gone for so long.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think on the literary front, you're not the first Ottawa writer or writing coach to be on this show. There's lots of different conventions and festivals and things. And so while we might not have a big party culture here in sleepy old Ottawa, I think it's a nice place for writers to develop careers and convene and connect with one another.
Yeah, I've since I've been back, I've connected with Mike Martin and Peggy Blair. In fact, we're working on it's called Killer Words Festival, Book Fest in Carleton Place in 2027. That is going to be a fun time. Yeah, we're going to take over the town of Carleton Place and have it as a murder mystery weekend.
You know what you should do? Some guerrilla marketing. Draw out those white chalk outlines of bodies in various parts of the
Yeah,
town.
yeah, exactly. That's what we plan to do. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your at least novel journey. Tell me about the moment maybe when you decided you were going to write this book and what that looked like at the very beginning.
Well, I've I've always wanted to. I kept saying from the time I was in my early 20s that, I'm going to write a book. I would tell all my relatives, I'm going to write a book. But if life gets in the way, right? And I had four children and busy life, and um, it just got put on the back burner. I thought it did anyway. And then I realized when I was kind of sorting things out, when we were kind of downsizing to get into this RV and leave, I've written a lot of stuff, you know, and just put it in little books, and it's been all collecting in a little box somewhere. And then I started writing more scenes, and then I write a lot of poetry. I do that under a different name, but the Poetry Girls, a circle of girls in Ottawa here, actually brought me onto summits,
Mm,
writing summits.
yeah.
And actually, that's where I met you.
Okay.
Well, I first saw you, and I don't know, maybe it was your Canadian accent that hooked me in, or that, because it was quite an international group of people. I just kind of liked that thing. But I had all these scenes, but I had no format to them. I did. I guess it's people call it a pantser. I just kind of had everything there, and I didn't know how to put it all together. So from beginning to end, because I'm coming up to publishing, it's been about 3 year journey, and I did take one of your courses in story planning, and then I kind of disappeared for a few months while I worked on it, and I went to Italy to a women's retreat, a women's writing
Women's
retreat.
writing retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that kind of gave me a lot more confidence
Mm.
to really pursue this and get it together. And it's been a very interesting journey. Of course, I made all the mistakes that a newbie makes, head hopping all over the place, kind of jumping in time. But I think I've got a good product now.
The book
Yeah.
is called If They'd Only Known, and it's an exploration of grief and trauma in a family setting, but it's filtered through a crime case. So tell me a little bit
Mhm.
about approaching these ideas of trauma and family problems through the crime fiction lens.
Yeah, that is kind of dramatic, I guess, because throughout our lives we all have these little moments of loss, and just to kind of frame it in a large loss kind of brings it to the fore of things that we probably could help us on our journey towards forgiveness and finding that serenity when horrific things happen. But I've always been really, really fascinated with not the crime itself, but what happened to the people around that. There's so many victims, like even the parents of murderers are victims. Like everybody suffers, and the ripples just go all the way through society. And that's always fascinated me. And that's kind of what my story is more about is what happened. Like the crime is almost the subplot. Not quite, but almost.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The last guest on the show was another client of mine, Sandy Day, who
Mhm.
characterized her novel Where the Night Winds Wail as Ontario noir. And I think
Mhm.
If They'd Only Known could very much fall into that same genre. So, what made you decide to set it in Northern Ontario? And do you think there's some sort of noir vibe to this province?
Oh no, this is a great province. After traveling all around, Canada is a great country. I got to tell you, we have so many things that we don't even appreciate, and look to other places for these things that we have in our own backyard. But I grew up in Thunder Bay when it was Port Arthur and Fort William. It used to take me quite a bit to remember it's now Thunder Bay. But having grown up there, I mean, everything was so idyllic and perfect, and I decided, I'm gonna set it in there where there's all these things to do when you were a kid, and just make it a little darker. Well, because I left there when I was about 15, 16 years old. And I'm sure there was a lot of darkness going on in any town there is, but I just knew the area. I knew that time frame very well. That's when I still lived there. And yeah, I just felt comfortable.
Well, speaking of the time frame, it is a historical piece.
The crime takes place in 1966.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
60s,
It's,
70s,
it,
and 80s.
yeah.
What were the challenges of writing historical fiction in that manner?
Oh, just getting the things correct. Like, for example, in one part, in the 1966 part of it, I had cadaver dogs in there. Oh, I did some research, and cadaver dogs were not used in Ontario until 1976. So I had to change that. And what was interesting is I ended up doing an Excel spreadsheet starting at 1900, believe it or not, and going in 10-year increments. And I had categories of slang, what was popular in slang, music, cars, or transportation, world events, Canadian events, and forensic events, right? And I started filling all that in. And like, I mean, today's environment is a little crazy, right? People are a little worried. And, the phrase, it's going to hell in a handbasket is bandied around. I'm going to tell you that having done that exercise, every 10 years, we've been going to hell in a handbasket. We've had terrible health problems, like Spanish flu. You know, you just go through all the 10-year increments. And so it gave me a lot of hope, like for the future, because getting the the vernacular right, getting even the buildings, because when they amalgamated and became Thunder Bay, they moved the police station to a different part of the city. You know, getting those things correct and where things were, that that was challenging for me. I had to try and make sure that was all correct.
Do you think there's anything particularly Canadian about the book?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me
Just,
about some of those aspects.
well, even the setting, phrases like using fly dope. I had a beta reader from Australia who had no clue what that meant. You know, I refer to block parents and the block parent sign that we used to have in the windows. And some of the other beta readers from other countries had no idea what that meant. You know, so there's a lot of, I should have had somebody baking butter tarts though. Do you know
Oh,
that
well,
that's
there's
a
some
real
people, I
Canadian thing?
guess. One of the
Yeah.
moments
Mm.
that kind of truly Canadian moments I like is that very early on, right after the crime happens, the community comes together to try to put together a search party and help. And where does that happen? At the local arena. And it just seems, of course, like as a Canadian, where else would a community
with
gather but the
with hockey
with
sticks.
hockey sticks to search through the foliage? So that
Yeah,
felt truly
yeah,
wonderfully Canadian to me.
yeah, it was for sure.
When I was writing my book M School, I had become interested in sociopaths because I am the complete opposite. I'm like overflowing with emotion. And so I was really fascinated by these people who don't feel emotion and empathy for
Mhm.
others. And so I wrote a book in first person perspective from a sociopath's perspective. And it was an interesting exercise. But by the end of it, I was like, oh my goodness, I do not want like to be in this person's head anymore. And
Yeah.
so I mentioned that because your book is about a child abduction and murder. I mean, even more challenging a place to put your head as a writer than just, thinking about sociopaths. So how did you handle, sitting down every day and writing about such a horrific topic?
Well, I had to put it aside for a while at times. Um, my sequel is even a little darker,
Mm,
and I'm finding like I have to put it aside.
mm,
You know, when I was researching for If They'd Only Known, there's a segment in there about Vietnam, and oh my goodness, some of the research I did, like I couldn't even finish the book. Like I have to come back a week later to look to read it. It was just, yeah. So you got to find outlets, you know. Um, Part of Jack Kelly, my protagonist in the book, is based on a fellow that my husband and I met in our travels, who was a cold case detective, and he was willing to share a lot of time and stories with us. His outlet was music,
mm.
and he would um, he would play gigs, you know, just wherever he could. But his outlet was music, and soon he became my outlet because we would go listen to him because he was very good, and he had his family would sing with him too, and that. But yeah, just staying in the moment and staying in today, and not like learning how to put it down and walk away from it. Yeah, that was a little tricky at first, but I think I'm pretty good at that now.
You just mentioned your protagonist was based on a detective you met, and you interviewed or spoke with a Vietnam vet.
Oh yeah,
Does this process of speaking to real people who have experienced these sorts of things in real life, do you consider a key kind of part of your research, or tell
for
me a little
sure.
about that? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Um, and I mean, not that I base everything exactly on these people. I'm not stealing their stories, but I feel so grateful that they are willing to share some of these stories with me, because some of them are kind of heart wrenching, you know. And that they trust me with the story they've told me, that I'm not going to make it any more or less than what it was. We also met a couple in our travels who have a missing child. And yeah, that was quite interesting because similar to my book, the father believes that the child is gone, and the mother, until she sees a body, is doesn't isn't going to believe it, right? So one is already going through the grieving process, and one is not. So it's kind of an interesting thing to observe, you know.
Hmm.
And then you kind of apply it to your own life, like some of the losses that I've had, you know, because you know I'm an old lady, so there's been losses along the way, and sometimes you get stuck, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes you get stuck in that grief, and and in my book, I tried to show like some people make it through it, and some people don't.
Hmm.
You know, it's not a happy ever after
Yeah, I
kind of
feel,
story.
we both write dark. But I feel like I'm generally pessimistic. And so like I don't have a message in these books that like it's all gonna turn out right, okay. What do you think your kind of personal take on all of this is? Because as you said, there's some justice or resolution in some senses of the book, but in other ways, there's losses and there's things that are never overcome. So, where do you land in terms of how we respond to dark aspects of being alive, but also in art?
Well, I kind of, I'm very big believer in forgiveness and acceptance. And you know, you can't change the past. You can't change what's happened. You have to learn to live with it. And and some people learn to live with it very well, like and move on or use the negative experience to help other people. And some people get stuck in it and they wallow in it and die. You know, I mean, if not physically die, you're living a life that isn't full.
Mm,
um, I mean, the loss of a child is horrific, don't get me wrong, it's horrific. um, and um, and we have lost a child, so I can come from that place, but you have to move on. You have to live for the other children.
mm,
And in my story, the girl who is kidnapped has other siblings, you know, that and how this affected them and the parents. And yeah, it's it fascinates me. There was a show on TV. In this particular show, uh they always, it's always cold cases, right? And it's always many years, and they use forensics genealogy to find out what happened. And in this one particular case, the brother, who was just a young boy when his sister was murdered, as and now you know a grown man, at the end of the trial, the brother goes over to the daughter of the murderer. Everybody was kind of like, "Oh, what's going to happen?" You know. But he went over and said he forgave her father. That was a big moment because he actually realized that there's more victims than just his sister.
mm.
You know, there was how he grew up with parents who have lost a child. It's just fascinating to me, like how it ripples through everything.
Well, you bring up the topic of forgiveness, which is a theme explored in the book. And I know it's also a topic that you've explored in your own life and perhaps other writings. So tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about forgiveness and the role it plays in this book and in your writing in general.
There is a scene where Shannon is really upset that her mother has forgiven the guy who kidnapped her sister, and has confronted her and saying, are you saying this is okay?" like what he did was okay. Like, how can you do that? And the mother explains that forgiveness isn't for him. Forgiveness is for me.
Mm.
Like that, and that's the whole thing that I think people get wrong or don't realize, or they'll say, how could I ever forgive somebody for doing something horrific like that? You're not doing it for them. You're not saying that it's okay what they did, or I condone it, or, you know, anything like that. It's that you've decided that you just want to stop carrying that burden around. You know, you want to be free of that lead weight that it pulls you down. It's interesting how in my other writing life, I'm working on a book about forgiveness. And, you know, because I spent half my life not forgiving people and being miserable. And, you know, it affected my work, my family, my whole serenity, really. And yeah, I just acceptance and forgiveness are a theme through this book, and probably, I guess, if you really thought about it, through my life, you know, finding that point in my life was a real serene moment. Yeah, that also helps me to be able to write about this without it affecting me so much. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah. Because you've learned not to hold on to everything or to hold on to
Yeah.
bad stuff.
And it's kind of like I can look at the dark side from a safe distance.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I often argue that literature is really an art form for older people. Being a pop star, probably for the young. Writing
Yes.
novels, I really do feel like books should have some wisdom to share. And I feel like a lot of valuable wisdom comes from life experiences. And so you've
Oh,
discussed struggling with not being able to let go or not being able to forgive. You've discussed the loss of a child. Do you feel like you could have written this book at any other point in your life?
no, 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 no. I didn't have the life experience.
Hmm.
You know, I didn't have the self-awareness or self knowledge. You know, I didn't take the time to examine, you know, some, you know, you really have to sit back and examine your life and draw out the lessons.
Hmm.
Like in every experience, there are no mistakes, but in every experience, there's a lesson to be learned. And and I truly believe that. And so I don't think I would have been able to write this with the lessons learned and that experience, like in my 20s or 30s. No, 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 wasn't there yet.
Something I often see with first time novelists, and this includes myself, is the self insert character where the protagonist is basically just the author in some form. With your book, you've got this diverse cast of multiple POV characters and many different people playing different roles in the story and across the community that it takes place in. Were you ever tempted to create a character based on you, or was one of them, did you feel like you, or did you just look at them all as individual characters representing different aspects of the people touched by this crime?
Yeah, I don't think I'm in here at
Mhm.
all. Um, and I was never tempted. I just kind of looked at each one in their role where they were. Uh, and you know, I know people used to say this to me, and I thought, oh, you're a little crazy. But your characters tell you what they're going to do and
Mm,
who they are.
mm,
And that, like the first time that really actually happened to me, it was kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't, you know, but it's true. And these characters, like I would write something and you know, they would come to me and say, hmm, no, no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, you got to change that. I even had one, I had to change the whole book. I think you may recall I told
mm.
this story about, you know, I was getting to a little frustrated and didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I had heard from, her name was Tracy Scoos. um, who said, like, do a meditation, and she actually had this music and everything, and ask your story what it needs, you know. And whew, I did that, and my protagonist had been Shannon, like, was going to be, you know, I wanted to write strong female characters, but that didn't come out.
Mhm.
I had ended up with Jack coming into my psyche or whatever it was and saying, "Hey, this is my story, not hers. Like, smarten up," you know? And so when I started writing it from that point of view, it worked out better. Like, it told the story I wanted to tell.
That's
But
a unique experience that I get as a coach. That's it's difficult, I think, sometimes to communicate to first time authors the organic nature of developing a novel that a client can come
yeah,
in one week and then come in the next week and they go, oh, guess what, the main character isn't the main character.
yeah,
And this is all natural, right? I've seen it a million times. Stories grow, stories evolve, we discover things, we amplify some things, we cut other things. And it's, for me, it's so exciting to see something start as an idea and then get to have you on an interview and see the book coming out into the world in a short period of time, and just to experience that journey alongside you and get to see things
yeah.
grow and become the thing that they are ultimately.
You must really enjoy that, because I know when we come in, you know, all these newbie things in our heads, and like, I've even had a point where a character has said to me, "I'm sorry, honey, you're going to have to change my name because, you know, a Mary wouldn't do that." I think that was one of the hardest things I had to to do about writing this whole thing, was naming people.
Yes.
Yeah, I had trouble with that. You may recall, at one point I had almost all my male characters' names started with J.
Right? Exactly. You gotta just get it feels right in your head and you don't even notice it until someone points it out.
Yeah, yeah. And but that, yeah, that whole thing, like, a Norma wouldn't do that. You'll have to change it to Vera or something like that. You
Mm.
know, like, it's just so weird. But
And that's
it happens.
people who are against planning or kind of are like staunch pantsers or whatnot, often make the argument that if they plan, all the kind of magic and surprise of the creative process will come out of it. And I'm like, just because you have a piece of paper that says in act 2 scene 2 someone's gonna go into a bowling alley doesn't mean those characters aren't gonna start talking to you, or the story might not go in a completely different direction. I just feel like giving yourself a bit of a path forward better facilitates the magic of the story coming alive and the creative surprises and the characters talking to you and all these things that happen along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I was just a pantser because I was just writing things. I have all these books here, booklets filled with stuff. I'm sure I have another story and a half in here that, you know, hit the floor because, well, no, that didn't work in here. So, but I wasn't a pantser by choice. It was because I just didn't know how to
Hmm.
make a plan,
Yeah, sure.
right?
I say this all
Because
the
I
time, Susan. I always say people try to write a book and they can't do it or it's not good and then they beat themselves up. And I'm like, no one ever teaches us how to write a book. We just think we're magically, it's like people
yeah,
understand that you need to learn how to become a dentist, but people just sit down and try to write a book and then feel horrible about themselves without ever understanding. Well, like anything else, you got to learn how to do it. And it can be really tough when you're going it alone and don't even know that planning is an option.
that's right. That's right. And I was really grateful for, you know, getting on these summits and learning about, oh, well, yeah. And then meeting up with you and having some organizational skills now to put it all together. And then I did, you had the first draft and final draft, and I'm sure you would have liked me to do a little more editing, but you know what? At my age, I got to get it out there. So,
Well, my goal as a writing coach is to help you achieve what you want to achieve. I would never be like, oh, you should do another draft when you're ready to get it out there into the world. And I think our beta reader experience proved that readers were ready for it. There was really, I felt with your beta readers, there was a real emotional response. People seem to have really, a lot of the time when we have beta readers, they give us more technical feedback. But whereas yours, a lot of people were like, I cried, it moved me, I couldn't stop thinking about it, these sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah. In Mexico, I met another Vietnam vet, and my husband's my greatest champion, right? So no matter all these strangers to me, she's written a book. Thanks, babe. Uh, but um, I was talking to him about the research I had done in Vietnam. He was quite surprised. He was an American, and he was quite surprised that that many Canadians, 28,000 Canadians, had actually volunteered for that in that war. And I said, I'll send it to you if you'd like to read it. And he was very moved, and in a lot of different ways that I didn't expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because once you've written it and you know what you're trying to say, but you have no control over how other people receive it, right? It's out there now. It's how they receive it, and I was quite moved by what he had said it meant to him.
Hmm.
Yeah. And and it helped him in a struggle that he's been having. And I don't know how, because he wouldn't talk about it, but he thanked me. And I thought, wow, the power of words.
Mm.
It really hit me when we had the conversation, and I was like, oh, yeah.
So many authors, or at least authors while they're prepping their first book, really define success by like bestseller lists and millions of dollars in the bank or something like that. But what I find from my own experiences and from what I've seen with clients, it's ultimately moments like that that really
Oh,
feel like success and feel like you've done something worthwhile.
yeah.
Who cares if you hit some Amazon list, but if you actually impacted someone's life in like a real way, I mean, yeah, money's great too, but I think all of us as writers and artists want to have an impact on the world. And how do you have an impact one person at a time?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember at one point, I would always say, I want to write a book. And then I said one day, I'm really stuck. Like I'd be doing these prompts and things. And I said, maybe this isn't for me, you know, to my husband, right? And he said, well, maybe you just don't have anything to say. Well, that kind of did it because I got lots to say. You've gotten to know me, I've got lots to say. So, yeah, I just had to learn how to say it. So, thank you
They always
for.
say, people say they get writer's block, and yet no one gets talker's block. So just make a little
True.
mindset switch there.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
You mentioned
So,
being in several of my group programs. I'm curious, what was it like, being in the trenches with other writers going through this same process as you?
oh, you know what? That was invaluable, invaluable because I've made some lifelong contacts. That will stay with me forever. Um, and the support that I've gotten from you, Laura, and everybody in the programs, different programs. And sometimes they don't even know they're giving you support. It's just when they're, oh, I can't get this and I can't get that. Even just hearing that is supportive because it's like, ah, me too.
Mhm.
And you're not the only one. And uh, I think in your groups that you've had, especially, but the positive feedback is amazing. And even when it's something constructive, it's done in a pleasant way, encouraging. So, for many people who are just starting out and that, especially if you're younger, because you get a little old and salty, you don't really, it all rolls off your back anyway. But it, or you take it in the way it's meant, like as constructive, and not get personal about it. But I find that yeah, it's been invaluable, and I'm going to miss it when I'm not there.
Well,
For
let's
sure.
talk about the future here. We've got the book, If They'd Only Known, coming out shortly. What does the next, say, 6 months look for you in terms of promoting the book, and what have you got planned?
Well, I've got my website going. If you want to get over there, you can see it at susanleon.com. Very simple, just my name all together, and .com. I have a newsletter going out. I am starting to put together the building blocks for the next Kelly and Crusoe mystery. Also, I am working on, in my other persona, the forgiveness book. Um, I'm hoping to have that out in the next few months. Quite a bit of the book is about what forgiveness is not,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, like it's really a simple decision. Forgiveness is a decision. And that's sometimes hard for people to do, to decide. Just to decide that you want to live a better life, you know?
Yeah.
And I always say, when you sit on that fence, that picket fence, all you get is a picket up your arse. Yeah, making a
Well,
decision.
Brenda, if folks want to pick up the book, If They'd Only Known, it's available Amazon.
It'll be available on Amazon, through Friesen Press, which is a Canadian publishing services company that I have used. And what I like about them is they're 100% Canadian and 100% employee owned,
Ooh.
which kind of appeals to my socialistic nature.
Well, you're just Canadian, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there'll be a few others. I think Barnes and Noble, Ingram distributes it, so it'll be out there. And I will be doing some book fairs and things in the local area. I will be adding an events calendar to my website. Um, there's something coming up in October and another one again in December.
If people want to keep track of everything you've got going on, heading to susanleon.com, getting on that mailing list is probably the best way to do so.
Yeah, yeah, it would be. Newsletter, I've got a newsletter coming out next week. So if you want to get on that right away. And there'll be some freebie things for people who subscribe, such as I have one little uh, short blurb on Before They Knew.
Mm.
Um, so it talks about 5 years prior to um, the book happening. And then I have some other little blurbs about Jack Kelly when he was young and how Dell gets to be part of his family, will be another one. Um, those are things that kind of hit the cutting room floor when we went to, actually put the book together. But I think they'd be
Sounds
of
great.
interest.
As when I was in the movies in the early DVD days, like those behind the scene documentaries or author
Yeah,
I loved those, and so I love it when I see writers doing the same thing. Hey, want a glimpse into a scene that got cut, or a different aspect of the world that this story is set in, or a different angle on these characters. So I think folks should get on that newsletter mailing list and get those cool extra bonuses.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're kind of fun.
It has been such a pleasure working with you.
Thank
I'll
you.
tell you a really quick story. I've probably told you this before, but pretend I haven't, because then it'll be new for the listeners. Uh, when I was first starting my coaching business, I was in a small group coaching program for small businesses, and there was all sorts of different courses in their training library. All taught by different people. They brought in different experts to teach these different courses, and I watched this one course that was Book Yourself Solid, and I don't know why, but I was like, of all these courses, of all these teachers, for some reason, I really resonate with this coach. And so I looked him up. His name was Jason Billows, and he lived like a kilometer and a half from me. So, I mean, I don't know if it is the accent, I don't know if it's the energy, but this experience that you were somehow drawn to me, I have literally been through the exact same experience where somehow Jason Billows spoke to me and it turned out he was, in Ottawa as well. So, um, the point being, there's something magical about getting to work with someone who you can actually get together with coffee. And you
Yeah,
were hanging out with me and my wife the other day by my pool, and
yeah.
I so wish, obviously the internet is wonderful. Zoom calls are good. It's great to be able to work with people from all around the world. But boy, is it also nice to breathe the same air and sit next to
Yeah.
someone and drink a coffee together. So it's been a delight, both being your coach, but also your friend and fellow writer.
Well, and thank you so much for this podcast too. That'll be helpful.
My pleasure. It was great having you.